Welcome to Messy Christian Mamas. We are three Christian moms with a progressive mindset and loving hearts and minds. We are imperfect humans, but we're all loved in God's sight. At some point, we've all felt like the church and Christianity may not have been for us, but God isn't looking for perfection. He's just looking for you.
We are not experts in Christian theology, and we do not represent any particular Christian faith or church. We are simply here to be authentic, and we hope you join us on this journey.
Welcome back to Messy Christian Mamas. Hopefully you missed us. This is Kendra.
This is Kaylee.
And this is Ashley.
And we are joined once again by our wonderful guest and podcast family at this point, Kara Bryant.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
And we're in our second part of a two-part episode called The Lamentations of a Middle-Aged Mother. And just a quick recap, we are exploring this podcast that Kara is likely to start called Lamentations of a Middle-Aged Mother, and digging today into a little bit about what that podcast might look like. Last week we talked a lot about Kara's faith journey, how she came back to the wonderful city of peaches and peach tree, and
Where there are no peach trees. The kids are talking to me about that. Like, why aren't there any peach trees here? I don't know. I was like, why don't they
and like
grow
the
them?
worst peaches. We can't find good peaches. We can't find good
Right.
peaches. But anyway,
Yeah.
and what Lamentations are. So if you want
That's
to
one
know
of
more
them.
about that, jump back to that last episode. But glad you're here, so stay with us. So, Kara, why
Yes.
are you interested in starting a podcast about the Lamentations of a middle-aged mother?
Well, I am a middle-aged mother.
Okay, check.
Check. Check the box.
No more explanation.
No, not needed. So I have two boys of my own, and I'm stepmom to three boys. So we have a big blended family.
So many boys.
So many boys. So many boys. So the oldest is 23. That's Christopher. He is almost 6'7". He's very tall.
Ooh, wow.
Yes, and no, he does not play basketball. He gets that asked that all the time. Then Isaiah is 20, and he's probably like the most laid-back person you'll ever meet in your life. And he's Mr. California, and he's just kind of a goes-with-the-flow kind of kid, and
Okay.
everybody loves Isaiah. And then the next is Cole. He's 18. He's my oldest. He's a freshman at UNG, and he's in the Corps of Cadets. So, which is interesting because Isaiah's at UNG as well, but he's on the civilian side. So we have two kids at the same college going through drastically different college experiences.
Sure.
And then the youngest two are Sam and Jake. Sam is mine, and Jake is my husband's, and so he's my stepson. They're 14 years old, and they are completely different.
Oh, the same age?
They're 2 months apart.
Wow.
Sam is 6'2" and 220, and he's an offensive lineman. And he's 14, so we've got some more growing to do.
It's shocking.
And he's
Yes.
so sweet. Just the sweetest
He
kid.
is the sweetest kid. And then Jake
Very into
is
football.
Very into football. It's almost like a cult. It's
Oh, yes. Yes. Absolutely. I can see that.
He talks about it. He watches it. He dresses in his football gear. He knows facts that happened in games before he was born.
Wow.
He's like,
And he knew
"Mom,"
this when he was like 10.
Yeah.
Like he started this
when he was like 9 or
very
10.
young.
He's like, Mom, did you know in 2014 or when Auburn played Alabama? I was like, no. Why do you know that? We're 4. Like,
Why? Why did you do that?
I do not understand. But they're a great group of boys. It's a lot at times, and going through not only just the journey of motherhood, but stepmotherhood.
Yeah.
There are a lot of times I've had some lamentations that I've needed to share. And also at this point in our lives, people around my age are going through the situation where they're taking their kids to college. Some still have kids at home, and they're having to take care of their aging parents. So
Right.
it's a really weird stage of life where you're still you're a caregiver to multi generations of
Yeah.
people, and at times it feels like I just cannot handle anything else.
Yeah.
So I thought that it would be a really good idea to start a podcast called The Lamentations of the Middle-Aged Mom, because there has to be a safe place where you can talk about what's going on, but in a way that's not going to be whiny, and we're obviously not going to be a counseling podcast, but a way, if you, like we'll get more into this when we look at the Book of Lamentations, but in a way that's like, yeah, all this is stuff that's going on, but my faith is seeing me through it.
Oh, I love that.
So if you look at the book of Lamentations, it's pretty short. It's 5 chapters, and they're broken down. I'm just going to read the chapter names because obviously, like, a city being taken over by Babylon doesn't really apply right now. But if you read through it, there are some verses in Lamentations like, yes, I totally see where that's coming from and how that could apply. But the first chapter is how lonely sits the city. And I think everyone who's a mom can relate to being lonely. Mm-hmm. And how even though you're surrounded by people, you feel like you're alone all the time.
Yeah.
The second
maternity leave was brutal for me sometimes.
Maternity leave was
just
awful.
being at home, you're like,
That's when you need them. That's when you need them most.
Right.
You're
One
like,
of the times you need the most support.
Right.
Too.
It is rough. And Addie was colicky.
Yeah.
And Sam was colicky. And I remember not liking my child.
Yeah, sure.
When he was a baby because he just screamed for 7 hours every day.
Yeah.
And my husband at the time would, one of his good points is he would come home from lunch and take the baby so I could go on a 20-minute walk just to get away from the screaming.
Oh, that's so much screaming.
So much screaming.
So much stress.
And my neighbor would see me just walking the streets crying. And she's like, I just didn't know how to approach you. And I was like, a hug would have been great.
Yeah.
So
Headphones. You could have given me headphones.
Right. So that was chapter 1. Chapter 2 of Lamentations is called The Lord Has Destroyed Without Pity. Which is rough. And so in those rougher times of life when you are angry at your circumstances and you're going through things that you don't feel are fair, that you shouldn't have to go through, we can kind of see like people have been angry at God for a long time. Yeah. And it's very natural to lash out in that situation. But chapter 3 is called Great is Thy Faithfulness. So you go through these 2 terrible chapters, and then chapter 3 brings you back to the faith of God and how he's not going to... This may be a tough season, but you're not alone. He's still with you.
It's just a season.
It's just a season. It may be a very long season, but it's still a season.
Yeah.
Chapter 4 is called The Holy Stones Lie Scattered. And I think all of us can... The way that I look at this when I read Lamentations chapter 4 is you can think about... Like, my oldest has gone to college, and none of my stepsons live with us. So it's me and my husband and Sam, and how, like, all of our children are scattered around, right? And not only are our physical children or our literal children scattered around, but, our bodies are changing, and I can't do what I used to be able to do, and how I feel a little lost and... Like, I feel a little scattered. Like, my waistline is growing.
My brain is completely
and
scattered.
I can't remember anything because perimenopause is no joke, ladies. And then chapter 5 is called Restore Us to Yourself, O Lord. So it's like in the midst of these trials and tribulations, in the middle is God, and at the end is God. And even at the beginning is really God. But when you're going through those trials and tribulations, it's hard sometimes to... remember that God is there, although a lot of times people will turn to God in their lowest moments, and that's really the only thing that gets them through. And there's a really good saying that Chris will use a lot that says, you don't know Jesus is all you need until Jesus is all you have.
Oh, heck yeah.
So and that kind of goes beyond like just a lament. That goes into, my life is falling down around me, and what do I do to get myself out of it? So the whole point behind the podcast is going to be there have to be other moms like me who are going through similar things and need a place to vent about it, but laugh through it too. Mm-hmm. Because I think a really good way to deal with hard situations is through humor. You laugh when things are ridiculous, and you laugh when things are horrible, and it kind of gets you back through and helps you reset. Absolutely. So that's kind of the vision behind the podcast that's to come. Probably not until January, because I am also, in addition to being a full-time teacher and a mom and a pastor's wife.
I was going to say pastor's wife is another job.
Right. And I'm also in school at Kennesaw State working on my specialist degree. So I cannot do anything until I finish up these 2 classes. The next semester I'll only have 1 class. So
what are you studying?
Instructional technology.
And how will you apply that?
Well, I will be getting a nice fat raise at work.
Okay.
To be honest. But I'm also 4 years from having my 30 years in education. So my thought is when I finish my career as a public school teacher, I can be an instructional technology coach, or I can work for Discovery Ed and teach teachers how to use instructional technology products to make their jobs easier and more efficient. So that's kind of my long-term plan behind the degree.
Very smart.
So
what seasons of parenting have you already seen with children of all of these different ages?
All these
now?
ages.
I have a 28-year-old bonus son, as I call him as well, and I entered his life when he was 2, and so I've seen a lot of it. But he doesn't physically live with us either.
Yeah.
He lives in a different state even. So definitely seen a lot with him. He was 18 when my daughter was born.
Oh wow! So that's you're spacing them out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously I've gone through the babyhood phase, which could not do that again. Every once in a while, when we were younger, we're obviously too old to think about that right now, but every once in a while, and earlier in our relationship, Chris would get like this wild hair because we only have boys, and he really wants to have a girl. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, well, I could try it again, and I could no.
Just come hang out at Ashley's house with
do
all
not
the
need
girls.
babies.
I don't understand those people who are like in their 50s and decide to adopt like 6 children. You see these people all the time.
I don't have the energy. I barely have enough energy to go to work in the morning, much less take care of a baby.
I'm like tired
You're
when I get out of
like
bed.
probably, almost maybe a little less than a decade out of possibly becoming a grandmother too, and that's much more fun.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, my grandmother, our mom's mom, was 49 when I was born.
Yeah, you want to
So.
Yeah, I'll just wait for your grandbabies.
Yeah, and I'm waiting for granddaughters, and then I'm gonna have to.
My stepson is married and has been for like 5 years now, so it could happen
You
anytime.
could be a step grandma. You could be a bonus grandma. It's coming. I know it's awful to think about,
It's awful.
but
But would be a beautiful thing.
Yes.
So all the seasons. So obviously the babyhood and the toddlerhood and the school age children. I did, had one son graduate from high school last year, and then so I'm in that weird spot where I have a kid
How
in
was
college.
that?
Oh, it was
crushing?
rough a little bit.
Yeah, it has to be.
It was a little bit rough, except for the fact that when he graduated at the end of May, it was also the end of the school year, which is nutso if you're a teacher.
Sure.
And I had an 8th grader finishing 8th grade, and I was finishing work for my classes at Kennesaw, so I almost didn't have time to lament about it. Right? I didn't have time to really take in the emotional fortitude of, oh my gosh, my baby, who I remember being born, is now not going to live in the house with me and is going to, move away to college. And dear God help him if he has the kind of fun I had in college.
I mean,
I remember that.
yeah.
There is no proof
witnessing
because
Kara.
there was no social media.
By the grace of God.
By the grace of God.
Kara went to Georgia Southern, and they were
I
like
went to Georgia
professionals
Southern.
there.
Yes. So funny story about going to Georgia Southern. I went to a wedding. This is before Chris and I got married. We were engaged, and he was officiating a wedding. And we stayed for the reception, and they had a keg, and nobody knew how to tap the keg.
Look at that!
I did. I was like,
my beer. In just a second.
I got it.
GSU Eagle, I got this.
I got this. And so I go up there and I tap the keg, and they're all looking at me. I was like, what? I went to Georgia Southern.
They're like, oh, okay,
nothing.
okay.
It's like part of freshman orientation.
So I went to school in Savannah. So you guys were there all the time in Savannah, and then Georgia Southern actually bought out my college.
Right.
I went to Armstrong Atlantic, and so they bought out our campus. So I get emails from GSU all the time, like for like alumni, and I was like, no, I'm so like loyal to them. Like, no,
No, I'm an
I didn't go to
graduate.
I didn't go to Georgia Southern. I was an Armstrong graduate. How dare you? You guys tipped really well though, so I was all
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's something to do in Statesboro. There's a lot more to do there now, but we went to football games and we went to Savannah and walked River Street. And
It was great.
had quite a lot of
Too
those
close to
frozen
Savannah.
beverages down
Yeah.
there. So I've done that, and then so now I'm in the weird phase of motherhood where I only have one left, and so I'm facing that empty nest.
nester. You missed the
motherhood.
chauffeur phase.
Oh, I'm still in the chauffeur phase. I was
know he
very
can't drive yet.
Good Lord, I know. It was very nice when Cole had his license. Cole and Isaiah had their licenses, and they were still living at home, and they could chauffeur the younger kids everywhere. So I got a chauffeur break for about 2 years, and that was lovely.
Oh, man.
That's nice.
We're entering the chauffeur phase.
That would be nice,
So
man.
that chauffeur phase is
Y'all
no
are entering it.
joke.
I've been in it for like 3 years.
Yeah, that's the chauffeur phase is no joke. I remember the first time I like dropped the F-bomb in front of Cole. It was because I was so sick of driving.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I drive all the time. Like, I was just like, I can't. And he was just like shocked. He's like, my mom just F word.
You have no idea.
Stop signing up for stuff.
Not my daughter's reaction.
My daughter's like, oh, it's a Tuesday.
A tick mark. Unfortunately.
But it was when I was buying, I bought a new car 2 years ago, and it was one of these things where I had to keep that in mind as like, oh, I'm literally running around all over the place all the time. I have to have something that has really
Good gas mileage.
It's so
And-
sad.
Ourselves. And by the way, do you know like the official ages for middle age is 35 to 50?
What? That's
That's a sick joke.
I
right.
know.
Who said that?
It's like in
They're
all,
wrong.
and I saw that for the first time. I was like, y'all, I only have a year and a half to still be middle aged. And a year and a half, I'm just gonna be old.
Well, my
What
sister
am I gonna do about that?
My sister got that because she just turned 35 and she's going through her fertility journey right now. And so a nurse just dropped the term geriatric pregnancy
Yes.
around her.
Ugh.
And she called me just fuming. And I was like, well, I understand you're upset, but
I had one of those.
that's what it's called. And she
They
was
just need to
like,
pick a different word.
Right.
so upset.
They really do.
She was
They
like,
really
it
do.
makes
Rude.
it sound like
It
I'm
is.
going to be
So rude.
wearing like slippers.
Right.
And yeah, like I'm just
Your house
I have
coat.
to be like on bed rest the entire time. And I was like, I don't know how to maybe take advantage of that. Like you're a traumatized people.
Right.
So they're like,
Girl, get
I have
ready.
to.
Get ready. Yeah, so when I had Cole when I was 30, and I had Sam 9 days before I turned 34.
Okay.
So I was still considered a young mom
Yeah.
at 33. Had I had him
Just
10
very-
days later, I would have been considered a geriatric mom.
So
I
at
turned
30.
35
Yeah, this is
2
wrong.
days before my daughter was born, so I was geriatric.
I was like,
Yeah.
that's just wrong.
I had my last baby. I was 39.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
And
you
I was
were a
fine.
geriatric mom.
amazing.
That was fine. Though. I was like strong as an ox.
So other things that come up with moms around our age, we're also, not only are we still caring for our children, we're transitioning kids to college or to young adulthood and all the stuff that comes with that. Plus we're caring for kids at home. Plus a lot of us are having to take care of our aging parents.
Yeah, the
and
responsibility.
there's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of, you feel like everything's riding on you. And it's not. And that's where you have to like lean into your faith and remember the title of chapter 3, Great is Thy Faithfulness, because while it feels like we're going through this alone, we're really not.
Yeah.
My dad he's had cancer 4 times. And
That's unbelievable.
I know, I'm like,
Was it the same kind?
no, two times it was the same kind. The first one he had was, he had melanoma. He had 10 inches of malignant melanoma removed from his back.
10 inches.
And somehow that turned into a
goodness.
lecture to me about going to the dermatologist. And I was like, ugh, why am I in trouble for cancer? But it happened. And then he had prostate cancer.
Oh,
And he had with that round of cancer, he had his last radiation treatment the day of my wedding to Chris. And he was in Lexington, South Carolina, had his radiation, drove 6 hours to
bless
Chattanooga
him.
for the wedding.
That's
Wouldn't have missed it for the world, and turned around and drove right back to South Carolina the next morning because he's caring for my stepmother who has pretty advanced dementia. So I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to think about, I'm really glad we moved back when we did, because living up near Chattanooga, I was 5.5 hours. That's a long time
Yeah.
to drive, and you have to go through Atlanta to get there. And it's not something you can do in a day and back. And living here is 3 hours away. But if I need to get to my dad, I can get to my dad. My dad never asks for help. He's also not a whiner.
Yeah, I'm sure his life feels so heavy to him that
Right.
he has to, right?
And my stepmom doesn't have any children of her own. So it's really, and my dad doesn't have any other kids. Ashley and I have different fathers. So it's me. When my dad can't take care of them anymore, it's going to fall to me. So I live with that kind of in the back of my brain on a daily basis, while I'm also taking care of a 14-year-old and chauffeuring him to and from football and all the stuff, and working full time. So there's a lot of challenges around this age
Sure.
that you just have to figure out how to weather. And I know I'm not the only one going through this. And I know, like, Shelly was telling us on Saturday that she moved her kids into college and then 2 days later flew out to California to put her mom in assisted living.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know other people are going through the same thing. And there's got to be a place where we can talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
We need more places to talk about these things.
yeah. And make it, and normalize it.
Absolutely.
Like, normalize having discussions about perimenopause and how you sweat all the time and you can't remember anything, and, you know, maybe getting a little bit TMI here, but sometimes, like, the sex drive drops and you don't want to have sex all the time.
Or
and,
the exact opposite.
or it kicks way up. Yes. It kicks way up.
Say,
Right now.
Right.
according to my experience with some people that have gone through perimenopause, was not always the case.
So, and it goes up and down, and, you know, it's not a shameful thing to be middle-aged, number one,
Yeah.
and to be a mom. And I think our society's getting better at not making the youthful, you know, supermodel mom the norm, because no one looks like that.
No one looks like that. Not even the
unless
celebrities do.
Right. I mean, Cameron Diaz is, bless her, 51, having her second one. I'm like, you're nuts. Or 53. She's pretty old. But she looks great. You know why? She's got a personal trainer.
Yeah,
And, a personal chef and a nanny. And,
Right.
Everything's also like retouched every photo
Right.
I see of her.
and, you know, I do not have those. I do not have a nanny, nor do I have a personal chef, nor do I have a shopper. Or, you know,
I am the chauffeur.
right, I'm the chauffeur. I am the shop. I grocery shop. I do the majority of the cooking. I have to, you know, so there are times when it feels like it all falls on me. I am very fortunate, though, that Chris is super helpful.
That's great.
I feel he's not like a lot of husbands, because I will come home and the dishes are done and the drainer's unloaded, and, you know, he's gone to the store, and I'm like, wow,
What is that like?
for real. It's impressive, and he's way more romantic than I am, so it's, you know, it almost feels like the roles are reversed at times
Yeah.
in our house. So I'm very fortunate with my husband that I do feel more supported. I think if I were going through this with my first husband, I would not feel supported.
Sure.
So
I think it's too, like, I think it's finally starting to come back to, like, where people are realizing that community is actually very important, and
Yes.
this village concept is starting to kind of come back, because I think you went from village to nuclear family, where, you know, you were responsible for your own family and that's it, and, like, you had the kids playing outside and everybody was kind of watching each other's kids, but when it came to discipline, when it came to raising them, like, that was your house was it. And I think now it is starting to become more common and more acceptable for, you know, you see these single mom communes that are like popping up every once in a while, and to me, I think that's lovely. Like, I think that's such a power move on these women to realize that, you know, they need help. Like, so they all move into the same house and they watch each other's kids and they raise each other's kids, and the financial burden of not having a 2-income household is lifted that way. And I think that's amazing. And when I knew I was going to be a single mom from the very beginning, so I was very mindful of the fact that I needed to build a village very quickly. Now, I came with a pre-made one because my family is
Very demure.
yeah, very demure, very mindful,
Porous
very
boundaries.
cutesy.
porous boundaries.
We love a fence. We love a boundary discussion. We are not inappropriate. No, that's not my family. So, like, I was already extremely blessed. When I got pregnant, I already knew that I had a pre-made village kind of made for me. And then with my personality, I sought out people who were like me. Like, my best friend is also a single mom of a biracial child. Like, I sought her out because I needed people who were going to be going through similar experiences that I was going to be going through that I could go to and lament with. Like, I could go and I could share my experiences with them and know that I was not going to fear retribution. I was not going to fear judgment. I was not going to fear that they were going to call defects on me for yelling at my kid. Like, so I think it's now starting to kind of form that we see these groups popping up of, you know, these mom groups and everything. And sometimes they can be very judgy and they can be very not cutesy. Not demure. But, like, I think the village concept, like, that was the norm for thousands and thousands of years. And then the nuclear family took over. And so I hope to see a growing trend of that, where women are allowed to speak and complain. Like, I think that's important. Like, I think a lot of women are, as soon as they say this is hard, they're then viewed as whining and complaining and weak. And I'm like, you have no idea what that woman is having to deal with on a daily basis. Like, you have no idea what our bodies do every single month.
I think this is also a big vote for a church community too.
It is.
I think churches are one of the only places that you really get the experience of multi-generational fellowship
and friendship and support.
Absolutely.
One of the hardest things about moving from Ringgold down here was leaving our church.
Oh, I bet.
As hard as it was to leave Kennesaw when I moved up there and the village I had built around me down there, it was 10 times harder to leave Ringgold because I had friends. I had friends close to my age. I had friends a little bit younger than me. I had friends much older than I am. And it was such a great support system and network that when we moved here, at least the Lord moved us to a town where I know people.
Yeah.
Now, Chris has lost his village, so he is very lonely right now.
Yeah, I bet.
And as a pastor, he has a really fine line between who he can socialize with and who he's pastoring. And it's still too early for him to blur those lines yet. So
that's like being a teacher.
Right. He's struggling a little bit with the transit, I think more than I am, but I think only because we moved to a town where I know people. Had we moved to, like, Rome or Augusta or anywhere else where we didn't know anybody, I would be struggling with it just as much as he is. Because that village concept is important. We can't do it all. We shouldn't be expected to do it all. And I think a lot of times society does expect us to do it all. And it falls on us. I think things have gotten better in the society as far as
31 woman.
Right. I think the expectation for fathers to be more involved in their children's lives and being more involved in the household is getting a lot better, but I still don't think it's where it should be. It's definitely still not. It's not a 50-50 split with sharing household responsibilities.
Well, I totally agree with that. And what I think is interesting is the as we age, the outward appearance of women is still expected to be at a certain level that is unattainable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's unattainable before you go through perimenopause.
Absolutely.
And the fact that I've packed on 30 pounds in the last, 20 of them this summer over the move, and it's not budging. Like, I can't do the same things I did before and lose the weight. Yeah. And none of my clothes fit. And part of it's like, just embrace your new body. I'm like, I do not want to embrace this. This is gross. But is it? Like, I shouldn't have that mindset that it's gross. Like, I am.
We had a whole body episode where we talked about this too. And I lost a ton of weight. And it was, honestly, because I changed my metabolism through starving myself. Essentially, like, I was just not eating. And finally tried to stop judging myself for being hungry.
Right. Well, I lost a lot of weight about 5 years ago, and I kept it off for over 2 years. Yeah. And I felt great. And then I started eating bread again and drinking wine again. And then I moved twice.
Oh,
and I got married and changed jobs twice. And
that's the opportunity cost, right?
Right. So not having obviously it's like, well, I can't eat bread and drink wine and go through stressful situations and maintain a size 8. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Something's have to give. You know what? A size 8's going to give.
The size 8s have gone, and the 10s and 12s are back in. So it's
hey girl, right here.
I did Manjaro for a year. I lost 140 pounds, and I've gained back when I was only able to be on it for a year, and I gained back 65 pounds after I went off of it because my body, that's medication that my body needs, but my lifestyle, my life can't afford $400 a month.
Right.
So it was one of these things where I had to be like, yes, I could either spend the $400 a month and stay at this weight, or I could just accept the fact that the 65 pounds are going to come back, and I just have to work with that. But a lot of people, were so epically disappointed in me and for me, like when the weight came back, because they were like, well, you work so hard. I didn't.
Right.
I didn't work hard at all. The medication did that. If I had worked hard and lost that and then gained it back within 4 months, like that doesn't happen when you work really hard to lose 140 pounds. That's what medication and surgery and stuff does.
Right.
So it's one of these things where I had to get over that whole concept of disappointing people and disappointing myself and people being like, well, don't you want to go back to that? I'm like, yeah, but at what cost? Mm-hmm. I was like, what am I going to have to cut out of my life in order to inject myself every week in order to do that? I was like, yeah, obviously my body appreciated that medication and did really, really well on it. And when it becomes generic and, less than $100 a month, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But until then, I'm okay with being the size that I am.
Right.
And if that disappoints you, then that's on you. That's not
Right,
really
absolutely.
that's not really on me.
The
especially
struggle to
talking-
love ourselves.
Right, especially talking about like aging, like we can't stop ourselves from aging. Like our appearance is going to change,
Yeah.
And so like I think the quicker we can accept ourselves the way we are, the better.
I think it's just great to be a part of a church where we can talk to other women who have already walked this road, and who can just validate, right? This is hard.
Yeah. And part of it, like, I don't have time to deal with like trying to lose weight right now. I've looked at like maybe I should start this plan or maybe I should try this plan. But like I said, I work full time. I'm a pastor's wife. I'm a mom and I'm in school. I don't have time to worry about losing weight right now.
Let's go to Hallmark and get some really cute flowy shirts. And
There you go. That's what I want. So
It
Kroger.
feels
Or
great.
Kroger. Yeah. Kroger in the middle-aged mom dress.
And then we'll go get some wine and some bread on the way home.
That'll be your profile picture for your profile for your podcast is you and the Kroger middle-aged mom.
That's right. Me and the Kroger middle-aged mom dress.
You'll rock it. It'll be fine.
With a glass of wine and a loaf of bread.
Yeah. From Kroger. In the Kroger parking lot. Just sitting on the curb. In the Kroger parking lot.
I'm middle-aged.
So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't trade being a mom for anything. I wouldn't go back to my 20s at all, and I wouldn't maybe not even go back to my 30s because, my kids were little in my 30s, and so that was kind of rough. But I was in such a bad emotional place in my 30s that I'm much happier now in my 40s. I'm much more. I know me better. I know myself. I know what I will and will not put up with. I'm in a much healthier relationship.
Probably understand mental health.
I understand mental health better. I understand when I'm being manipulated, and I'm like, no, let's put a stop to that right now. And I have a much better sense of self, and I'm a lot stronger. So I'm not afraid of getting old. I don't want to look old. I will fight that with every step.
I know, right?
I'm considering some filler and some Botox.
Oh, I thought that,
But I also remember
Accepting ourselves is like right out the window.
I know. But I also
No,
remember
look, I got my best friend. I'll hook her up with you. Believe me, she got all the good places in Peachtree City you can go to.
awesome. But I think more than the Botox and the filler, I want my knees to work again. Like I just want to be able to run on the treadmill and not feel like I'm going to die. Or I want to be able to get out of bed and not throw my back out rolling over from sleeping.
Yeah.
So it's like those are the hard things about getting
Climb
older.
the stairs without hearing crick, crick, crick.
Crick. During standardized testing, when it's supposed to be super quiet and I have to actively monitor, my knees and my ankles distract the kids from how much they pop.
You know what?
Wow.
It is ridiculous. So
My feet from dancing too. I don't know if you have this issue, Ashley, but my feet just crack. Like,
Yeah.
A lot. Like I
I remember doing plies and it's like
stretch them out. I'm lying in bed at night. I'm like, God, I sound like a baby.
I know. And then I've been very reassured by the older people at our church. Like, don't worry, it gets worse. I'm like,
right.
awesome. Thanks so much. It's not gonna get better. It's not gonna get worse. So
Yeah, it is what it is. I guess that's That's
It
all
is
we
what it
can say
is.
about it.
And you lament through it, you turn to God, you lean on your faith, and then you drink wine with your friends.
And
And
surround yourself with people that you love. And
right.
that love you too. Yeah.
So
Yeah, agreed. So when I was looking at definitions for Lamentations, the context so often revolves around something or someone that died. And as a middle-aged mom, sure, there are parts of that journey that have passed and you won't see with your children again. But what are some of the new parts that are full of life and that give you hope?
this is really funny. One of my friends on Facebook posted something about she and her son had gone hiking, and she loved that several times during the hike he just like grabbed her hand and would hold it. And I said, I miss that. Like, I miss the handhold stage.
Yeah.
The last time Cole held my hand on, like, without, like, me grabbing his was in 6th grade, and we were going into Publix, and he just kind of, like, out of habit grabbed my hand when we were crossing the street. And I knew in my head, this is the last time he'll do this. And that like, talk about the death of the sweetness of the, those physical moments with your children.
Yeah.
That's hard. I like being a teenage boy mom way more than I thought I was going to like it.
Oh, interesting.
So I love going to the football games, and, I don't like it when I hear the helmets hit.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, CTE, you're all going to die. But, but it's also fun it's fun to watch my son excel in the area that he's passionate about.
Oh, I bet.
So it's fun to watch Cole excel at ROTC and be a cadet leader, and it's fun to watch Sam excel on the football field and as a freshman go in for varsity plays from time to time. So it's really neat to go through that, and they just have such fun personalities. They're like almost grown-ups but not quite. So they can interact with me on a grown-up level, but then they still from time to time need their mama.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, boys always gonna need their mama.
So
that's one thing I'm super jealous, like, with boy moms. My sister's a boy mom, her boys are 3 and 10 months, and they're just so sweet. They're just so, I mean, I love my daughter, but, like, she's gonna be hyper independent, and, like, I think all of our girls are gonna be hyper independent.
Yeah, they probably will.
But every boy I know, like, has always been so protective of their mom, and I just think it's the sweetest thing. Just the sweet, like, they go out of their way to protect you, make sure that you're, like, they're on the outside of the sidewalk when they walk on the side for you, like, and that's such a and like, the thing is that you're raising husbands, like, you're raising fathers, like, and that's such a strong thing for a woman to do. Like, you are raising how they are going to treat their wives and treat their daughters, and that's like that's such a powerful thing. Like, we have to worry about raising our girls in order to recognize good men and be independent women, and you get to raise strong men, and that's what's so powerful.
And I feel like so often we're raising our girls to teach them how to protect themselves and how to be safe, whereas you're teaching your boys how to be a protector.
mm-hmm.
Right.
and to not be that jerk that we all experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't be the jerk. I read something the other day that said, as moms, we raise our children to become self-sufficient, independent people, and the hardest part about being a mom is accepting that when it happens.
Right.
And they don't need you anymore, and you're like, but I'm your mom. And you still. So it's hard. There's ups and downs to it. Part of me is looking forward to Sam graduating from high school so that we are in the empty nest phase, because Chris and I have a lot of fun when the boys are not there.
Well, you guys were both in the thick of it when you got married, so
yeah,
like, that would be a whole new world for the two of you.
We are a little bit ready for a break from kids, but at the same time, there's a high probability that Sam's going to be at school out of state, and there's going to be a high probability that Cole's going to be in the Army, and he's going to be living out of state. So then that whole, like, I won't be able to see them on a regular basis sets in. It's like, all right, then that's a whole different phase of motherhood that I'm not quite ready to
You've got some
time. I've got a little bit of time, so.
Right.
Yeah, that's tough. How's your faith help guide you?
If I didn't have my faith, I don't think I would have made it through the toddler years.
Oh, right.
It definitely
The will.
the strong wills. Everyone says the twos are bad. It was the threes.
No, threes
Oh,
are
yeah.
so much worse.
It was the
Yeah.
threes. My faith definitely helped me through my divorce and being a single mom. My faith has been pivotal in this blended family role because my husband's ex-wife really paints me as step monster and pits me, against
that situation.
It's rough and it's unfair and it's unfounded, but I can't control that. And so learning to let go of the things that I can't control, and patience and self-control and my fruit of the spirit inventory, those are the lowest tiers.
Right?
Kindred spirit.
So, I just have to realize, I can't control this. I can't control what she says or how she acts.
Vengeance is the Lord's. Vengeance is the Lord's.
I just have to let it go and let God take it over because and not let her negativity impact my relationship with my stepsons
Or change who you are.
or change who I am.
Right?
So it's been, especially being a pastor's wife, and there's a lot, pastors go through so much stress and there's a lot that go on with them behind the scenes. Having that faith to turn to be like, okay, this is very different than I thought it was going to be, but that's okay. And we will work through this together. As long as God stays at the center of our relationship, it's going to be okay. Sometimes that's a little harder when God is his job.
Yeah.
Right? So
He can't escape that.
He can't escape it. There are times when we'll go out. We like to go places like far away where no one knows us, so he could just pretend to not be a pastor for a little while.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean like we don't think about. We still.
He's at a big church here, too.
They're
It's a giant church in this town.
And funny story, we went out for dinner a couple weeks ago, and the owners came over and were talking to us, and we thought they were just there to how's dinner going, blah blah blah, and they were like, "Well, see you later, Chris." And he was like, "How did they know me?" And I said, "I guess they go to the church."
It's a huge church.
So
Yeah. How many seats are in that church? Do you know?
oh, it can easily hold 2,000.
I think that's
Wow.
a wild amount of people.
Yeah.
It doesn't ever have that many.
Sure, but
And it's down from where it was. So, I won't poach people from here, I promise.
well, we went the other way. We were Methodist first, so we became Lutheran after
Right.
we were Methodist.
So,
Went the opposite direction.
it makes, for what it's, one great thing about being a Methodist is that we are very, very clear in that we don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
And I find that a lot of faith traditions are like, well, unless you're this, then you're not. You don't really, it doesn't really count. And as a Methodist, we're like, we understand that we're flawed and imperfect, and welcome all, because we're all trying to figure this out together. So
I love
Yeah.
that about both the Methodists and the Lutherans. I think that
there's a lot of
we're
similarities.
aligned that
There's a
way.
lot of similarities between it.
So, ladies, do you have any laments that you would like to share this week?
Ooh.
I'll start.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
That's a lot of pressure for.
So yeah, I know
question.
that's a big one to drop on everybody. So, this is kind of in line with what you were talking about with just the physical aspects of the cuddles and things like that from the kids, the touch. I desperately wish that I could go back and be truly present for the days when my daughter was all cuddles and all that wide-eyed wonder for me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I agree. I look back and the biggest regret that I have, and I bet our mom feels the same way, maybe, but as a teacher, I regret working through times when my kids were home with me and they were awake because I wasn't fully present. And I did make, when Sam started kindergarten, which I hate that it took me that long to figure this out, I made a pact with myself. I will not work if they're awake. I won't work until they go to bed. That way they don't get their mom very much during the day.
Yeah.
Let me just be with them for these 2.5 to 3 hours that they're awake after school. Because the school I was at, we wouldn't get out of school till 4:30 or 5. And then, it was late.
Yeah.
So I just made that a pact because I did feel like I feel like I missed a lot of their younger lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back at pictures and I'm like, man, I miss those days. I don't want to go back to them, but I do miss them.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I think my lament, I share 50-50 custody, so I see my kids week on, week off. And so missing half their child is really very painful.
Yeah.
And they say it gets easier, and it has. It's gotten a little easier, but just like, especially Lillian, she's 3, and so like when I go and get her on Fridays, it's like she's grown an inch, and I missed all that, and just it's very painful.
I know, I feel like just being a parent of a child that age just breaks your heart. Just watching time pass.
Right.
Yeah.
It does. And especially if you look at like beginning of the year, starting school photos versus end of the year photos, you're like, oh my gosh, you were a baby at the beginning of the school year. What happened? And it goes through that every year. Right. I guess my lament right now is, like, I don't like the subjects that I'm teaching at school. I'm getting more used to it. But I'm not a reading teacher. I'm a math and science teacher, and I'm having to live in a reading and social studies world, and I don't love it.
Yeah.
I don't even like it a little. So that's like, and I signed up for it on purpose. I knew what I was going into, and part of it's because I want to be able to, if I'm going to go into instructional coaching, I need to know how to support all the instructional areas.
Sure.
And since
You're so smart.
I'm trying. I'm working through it. But I'm struggling. That's my biggest struggle right now is like, how can I do my job the most effective way and not let the kids know that I don't enjoy these subjects at all. So let's find a way to make it fun.
Sure.
So that's kind of my limit. Like right now, Mom in it's not so hard because there's just one, and he's 14 and he's self-sufficient.
And his world is probably friends.
And his world is football and friends. So, as long as he's doing well in school and doing well in football, he's fine. And I just can't feed him enough because he's...
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Your other lament is the grocery bill.
The other lament is definitely the grocery bill. That when we had 4 of them living full-time with us, 4 boys living full-time with us, our grocery bill was $1,300 a month.
Wow, that sounds impossible.
And that's, like, at the point, that almost was double our mortgage. Wow. Is what we were spending on food. And none of them ever felt like they had enough to eat.
Right.
I was like, I don't have any more money. I can't buy you any more food.
So
you better go beg some food from some friends. So those are my lament right now is more on a professional level than the mom level. But I do miss the sweet snuggles. Although Sam will still, he's such a sweetie. Like we call him the gentle giant because he looks pretty big and scary. He's not scary looking at all, but he's pretty big. But on side, he's just a big pile of mush. And he'll still play with my hair. He'll walk upstairs and play with my hair while we're watching TV, and then he still hugs me goodbye and gives me a kiss when he goes to bed. So I still have a little bit of the sweetness still there.
What about Cole when you see him? Is he affectionate with you
no,
when you see him still?
He's not at all.
Oh, okay.
He's a side hugger, and I might squeak out a kiss on the cheek if I bolt him to the floor and I kiss him on the cheek. He's not. So but he's got a girlfriend, and Chris says when Sam gets a girlfriend, he'll stop being affectionate with me, and I was like, shut up.
Never. Not allowed to happen then.
Not allowed to happen. But, Cole's got a girlfriend. They've been together for quite a while, so he's got his affectionate friend, and that's fine. Like, that's appropriate.
Yeah.
So I think it'll come back around, though.
It will.
So.
It will. Ladies, this was wonderful. Kara, it was so fun getting to know you.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're home.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's been a interesting transition, but I'm glad I'm back too.
Yep.
Do you mind closing us out in prayer?
Really?
Yeah.
Are you cooking dinner tonight?
Yeah.
That's another thing I hate about being a pastor's wife is everyone expects you to pray.
Oh, man.
No, it's fine. I don't mind doing it at all. Okay, in the Lutheran tradition, don't y'all start a prayer with...
Nah.
We don't have to do that?
No rules apply.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good, because we don't do that in the Methodist Church. All right. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this wonderful group of women and this community that they've built, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of it tonight. We all need people and friends and support, and we all need to know that we are not going through this crazy middle-aged motherhood journey alone. Thank you for loving us and protect us on our way home. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Messy Christian Mamas. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, and Instagram. Until next time, embrace the mess, share the love, and shine your light bright, my friends.